Hi everyone, welcome back to our weekly Facebook Live session every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I'm Susan Lando, the owner of the Fossil Cartel, and I want to wish you a happy Wednesday. Happy, I hope for you. For many people it's not so happy. We're not happy here. We are experiencing the worst fire near us ever. In the Columbia River Gorge, we are devastated. It's one of the national scenic wonders. It is absolutely, the gorge is gorgeous, and it is on fire and burning to the ground, and we are so upset about it. And I know there's fires, many fires, other places, LA, from Canada down to California, all over the place. It's freaky. And then of course there's the hurricanes too, so stay safe everyone out there, and we're praying for everyone and sending good thoughts. Send some our way. It's been really smoky here in Portland, and we've been experiencing lots of snowing ash, which is really freaky. So I hope everyone else is okay, and the people that are struggling, I hope you find safety and peace and solace. So just one update today. Next week I will be at the Denver show. So we will come to you live from the Denver show, so stay tuned for that. It's always really fun. And if you have anything in mind that we don't have here, please let me know and I'll look for it for you at the show. So that's my update for today. So in honor of what's happening with the fires, I thought I'd talk about fire opal and fire agate. There's so many different kinds of opal, people don't realize. They're just used to seeing the Australian opals, which are all over the place because like 95 to 97% of the market is saturated with Australian opals. But I'm going to talk about and show you some other kinds of opal as well as fire agate too. So most of opal is made of silica and water. In fact, chemically, it's known as a hydrated form of silica. It's 1 to 21% water. And there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people call all opals fire opal, but technically that is not correct. So technically, what people call fire opal is a precious opal, and it's only a precious opal if it has that play of color, that fire that people talk about as fire. Real fire opal is actually an orange to a red opal. It mostly comes from Mexico, although we have some in Oregon, which I'll show you in a bit. So first I'm going to talk about it, and then I'll walk around with you in the store and show you all the different kinds of opal we have in the fire agate. So most of the precious opal comes from Australia, Ethiopia, and Nevada. Now you might have heard the term doublet or triplet with opals, and what a doublet is when you have an opal cabochon. So a cabochon is a stone that's cut flat on one side and it has a dome, rounded dome on the other side, and it's used for jewelry setting, versus a faceted stone where it has lots of cuts and makes it refract the light more. So a doublet is where you have an opal cabochon with a dark backing on the back of it. It makes the color stand out more. A triplet is where you have that same backing on the back, the black backing, and then on top of it is a very thin coating of quartz, a very thin layer of quartz on top. And that is mainly to protect it and also to basically show off the color more as well. The most valuable kind of opal is a black opal, but it has to be a precious black opal. So it's so the body color of the opal is black, and then it has that fire, the play of color. Other body colors of opal are beige, white, cream, and sometimes translucent. So black opal is mostly from Lightning Ridge, Australia. Let's see. So opals can be opaque, clear, translucent, and transparent. And when it's transparent or very translucent and the color clarity is extremely sharp, it's often referred to as crystal opal. And because of its amorphous character, it's considered a mineraloid, not unlike crystalline forms of silica, which are classified as minerals. And it is deposited at relatively low temperatures, and many occur in the fissures of almost any kind of rock, and sometimes even fossils. Like you might see opalized wood, and then there's also some clam fossils that come from Australia that have been replaced with opal. We used to have them in the store. We haven't had them in a while. They're really pretty. You might have heard of Boulder Opal. Boulder Opal also comes from Australia, and it shows the matrix, which is, in this case, it comes from an ironstone boulder. So it's quite striking because the matrix is a dark brown and then contrasted with the color of the opal. It's really pretty. It's not from Boulder, Colorado, like some people think. It's named after the ironstone boulder it comes from, and from Australia. Mexican opals are where you get most of the fire opals from, which is the orange to the red. And not all fire opals have the fire or the play of color, so not considered a precious opal. Sometimes they're called jelly opals if they don't have the play of color in it. And the ones where you see the matrix with the opal is, in the Mexican opals, the matrix is a rhyolite in those opals. Years ago, me and my husband and son, I was pregnant with our daughter, we went to Mexico and we dug for the opals. It was really interesting. In Magdalena, Mexico, which is not a tourist destination, so it was pretty cool to see that there were no other gringos there, just us. And we didn't actually find anything when we were digging, but I did manage to find somebody else that had found a bunch and had them made into cabochons, and I bought a bunch from him. I still have a bunch of them, which I'll show you in a while. Then there's common opal. Common opal is a white, opaque opal, often found in thundereggs, like this thunderegg here. It has agate, and then it has some of the common opal, which is our state rock, the thunderegg. And then we have Peruvian opal, which is opaque, pink and blue, sometimes a greenish blue. We also have a blue opal from Oregon, from Owyhee, Oregon, called blue Owyhee opal. And then there's synthetic opal, which is pretty common, and it's very inexpensive. So if you ever see an opal that has lots of color, lots of flash, and is really cheap, it's most likely synthetic. I can tell by just looking at it. It has a certain fakey look to it. There's something else called Girasol opal, which isn't really, well, there is a real Girasol opal, but the Girasol opal on the market that's sold as Girasol opal is actually a milky kind of quartz that comes from Madagascar, and it displays asterism, which is the star, like you've seen a star sapphire or star ruby. It's a star on the surface, and that's created by thousands of microscopic rutile refracting the light. There is a natural hyalite opal, which actually Oregon opal mostly is hyalite opal, as well as some from Mexico, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Oh, so I didn't connect the two. So real Girasol opal is hyalite opal, which exhibits a bluish glow or sheen that follows the light source around. And then there's something called contraluce opal, which sometimes Oregon opal has, and that is where you only see the play of color when there's light shining through it. We don't have any of that kind of opal at the moment, but we've had it before. Let's see what else. Oh, and then there's Ethiopian opal, which is a precious opal, and it rivals the Australian opal, although I think it's not as stable as the Australian opal. So sometimes what happens with opal is, because it's so fragile in that, because it's amorphic, it's prone to change a lot because of all the water in it, sometimes it forms these cracks inside called crazing. That's when the opal just starts cracking inside. I know with the Oregon opal, most of the time they inject something called, what's it called? Opticon. It's called Opticon to stabilize it so it won't create the crazing inside. So Ethiopian opal started coming onto the market in a big way in 2012, and now it's rivaling the production of Australia. It's really interesting and incredible, and we have some beautiful Ethiopian opals I'll show you in a minute. And black opal can also be found in Nevada, and most of the precious opal found in Nevada is actually partial wood replacement. So it's fossilized petrified wood that was replaced with opal, fissures of opal. Black fire opal is the state gemstone in Nevada, and regular fire opal, well, actually precious opal, is the national gemstone of Australia. The largest precious black opal is in the Smithsonian, and it's from Nevada, and it weighs 160 carats or 32 grams. A few other places opals are found besides the ones I just mentioned and Oregon is Spencer, Idaho, the Czech Republic, Canada, Slovakia, Hungary, Turkey, Indonesia, Brazil, Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. And in late 2008, NASA found a deposit of opal on Mars. That's interesting. I'd like to see that. There's superstitions about opal. A lot of people believe they're bad luck unless somebody gives it to you. Now that is just a myth, and it's interesting where it came from. I'll tell you the little story. Well, first of all, in the Middle Ages, opal was considered a stone for good luck. It was, and because how it got that, they got that idea was because it possessed all the different colors of all the gemstones, which represented the different virtues of all the different stones. And it was also said to confer the power of invisibility if wrapped around a fresh bay leaf and held in the hand. But then what happened was there's this novel, a popular novel that came out in 1829 by Sir Walter Scott. It was called Anne of Gerstein. And there's a character in the novel called the Baroness of Amheim, and she wore an opal as a talisman, and they believed it had supernatural powers. But when a drop of holy water got on the opal, all of a sudden it became colorless. And shortly thereafter, she died in the novel. And because the novel was so popular, all of a sudden people were associating opals with death and bad luck. And because of that, the market for opals dropped 50% in 1829. And 20 years thereafter, the market stayed really low. And that stigma follows it today. Opal is also the birthstone for October, and the secondary birthstone for October is pink tourmaline. We have an amazing selection of opals of all kinds in the store, and I'll show you in a second. So then fire agate is not an opal, it's a type of agate. It's actually a type of chalcedony, which is a variety of agate. And it's mostly found in northern Mexico and southwest US, like Arizona, New Mexico, and some parts of California. It was formed 24 to 36 million years ago from massive volcanic activity. During this period of volcanism, when hot water saturated with silica and iron oxide repeatedly filled cracks and bubbles in the surrounding rock. It is a 5 to 7 on the hardness scale, and by the way, opal is between 5.5 to 6.5 on the hardness scale. I always thought it was softer than that, but the thing about opal is it is pretty fragile and it's prone to scratching and chipping. So it's not, so if you get it in a ring, really it's considered a cocktail ring because you're only supposed to wear it on special occasions as opposed to every day because it's easily scratched or chipped. But if you get it as earrings or pendant, it should be fine. And the name fire agate comes from the iridescent rainbow colors that are in it, similar to opals. So then I wanted to show you real quick the Mount St. Helens Emerald Obsidianite, because the ash that we're experiencing here in Portland from the fires is similar to the ash that they experienced when the volcano blew in 1980 and 82, which is, again, really freaky. So anyway, I will show you all the different opals, so be patient with me while I turn the camera around and walk you through the different parts of the store where we have them on display. So let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay, a nice view of the brick wall. So first I'm going to show you all the, whoops, maybe I'm not, all the Australian opal. Hello. We have some in this display over here. This is our birthstone display. And we have some opal along with the pink tourmaline. Let's see. So Australian opal typically, but not always, is kind of bluish. That's Australian opal. This is Australian opal. And you see it has the play of color, but it's got a kind of bluish background. This is a gorgeous pair of Ethiopian opal. Let's see if I could get it in focus here. I know my phone camera isn't the best for taking close-ups. Oh, here's a rough piece of Oregon opal there in the back. And then these are Ethiopian opals again. Now, a lot of times Ethiopian opals are yellowish, and these are kind of greenish too. And then there's some Mexican opal fire cabs. Here's a gorgeous opal bracelet. You don't often see opal in bracelets. That's Ethiopian opal. And then we have these gorgeous carvings. Now these are drilled for pendants of Australian opal by a local artist, Steve Andrews. You can see that. Again, I'm sorry my camera's not fantastic. And while the customer's looking at the other case, I will take you over here where we have fire agate jewelry. Well, not too much. It's expensive fire agate. We have this bracelet. I don't know if you could see that. It's not really good for macro photography, unfortunately. And a couple of pendants that are Nick wire wrapped. There you go. And it's sitting on a fire agate stone. Okay, now I'm going to walk you over to our main opal display. Right over here. Oh, hang on, let me get the prop up board. It'll be easier to see everything. Oh, well, why don't we just stop right here right now? I'll show you some of these other things real quick. So here's some Mexican fire opal cabochons. You see there's little windows of opal. Some of them have more color than others, and in this light you can't really see it too well, but you see the matrix is a rhyolite. This is that pink Peruvian opal I was talking about. It's opaque. It also comes in blue. Here's some fire agate pieces we have. See that color on the edge there? Let's see if you can see any more. This one has it on the tip, and of course the more color, the more expensive it is. Even these little pieces are $45. Here's some hyalite opal from Mexico, and these again don't have color to them. And then here's the opalite. Opalite is not real, it's synthetic. It's a glass. And they do use fluorite to make it, so there is a mineral involved in the process, but it's man-made glass, opalite. Okay, and now I'm going to take you over to the regular opal. Corbin, can you do me a favor and prop the case open for me? Say hi to Corbin, everybody. I can't really do that and hold the camera at the same time. Thanks. Okay, here we go. Alright, so we've got all sorts of Australian opal, and again, most of the bluish ones are Australian opal, although this is Australian opal, and it's got a lot of green in it. Of course it looks better in real life because this camera sucks. And then we've got these beautiful Ethiopian beads. Very orange, yellow, green. And then we have some Mexican fire opal rings. There's some earrings again, some studs. We have a really good selection of all sorts of earrings, rings, pendants, etc. And then I will take you, oh, and the Boulder Opal. Here's some Boulder Opal like I was talking about. You see that? That one's really purple. Gosh, I wish the camera was better. And here's some more Boulder Opal in the corner. all sorts of greens and blues, and sometimes there's reds and yellows in there. And those are drilled for pendants again too. You could put a cord through there. Okay, and then last but not least, the Oregon Opal and the Emerald Obsidianite. So here's the Oregon Opal. One second, I'm going to open the case. So this was discovered 100 years ago by a shepherd, and even Tiffany's marketed it at the turn of the century. So, and the mine went dormant for many, many years until about, I'd say about 20 years ago, somebody started mining it again. I'm friends with the miner. His name is Dale. So here's some Hyalite opal like we were talking about before. Those are huge. Here's my finger so you can see how big they are. And then this is Oregon Opal too, and you see how it's orange? Well, this would be considered fire opal. This is what fire opal looks like, technically. Here's some orange Oregon Opal, fire opal, as well as this freeform pendant on the bottom is the fire opal, and the rest is all Oregon Opal, but I was showing you the difference between the Hyalite opal and the fire opal. We don't have any precious Oregon Opal at the moment. It does exist, super rare. Here's some faceted pendants. Trying to get the focus. It's not working. And some post earrings and rings. Okay, and then we have the, oh, and we got some rough, really great rough pieces of Oregon Opal in. It's really hard to get. It hasn't been mined in a while. So super hard to get. So if you want any, I encourage you to get it now because we might not be able to get any more. They're running out of material, and Dale hasn't mined it in a long time. He needs a bunch of money to rent the equipment to mine it, and he hasn't been able to come up with that money, so he hasn't mined it in a long time. We don't know if it will be mined again. This is a tree of blue Owyhee Opal from Oregon, and it's got a blue opal filled thunderegg on the base. And then this is the Mount St. Helens Emerald Obsidianite, and it was discovered accidentally when the volcano went off originally. Weyerhaeuser had some heavy equipment in the area, and when they went to retrieve it, they noticed it was dripping. I mean, they had to melt off. It was covered with the debris of the volcano, and they had to melt it off with acetylene torches. And somebody noticed it dripping a pretty green color, and they figured out how to make the stone from that experience. So they basically take certain rocks from the eruption, and they pulverize it and melt it, and it takes out the impurities, and it turns a pretty green color. And so it rivals an emerald in color, but it's much more affordable than emeralds of that quality. Much, much more. And it came from Mount St. Helens, which is cool. And then they monkeyed with it more, and they got the purple, and the purple's really fun. They call it Twilight Obsidianite because it changes color in fluorescent light, and I will show you. And by the way, Mount St. Helens Emerald Obsidianite is also known as Helenite. There's basically two companies that make it, and the one we get it from calls it Obsidianite. Okay, so purple, 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 blue, purple, blue. It's really cool stuff. We love it, and sells really well. It's very popular. So that's my story for today. See if I can turn it around and just say goodbye. Thank you for watching, everybody. Again, stay safe, be well, and we'll see you in Denver. Take care.